Okay, in this video, what I'm going to do is there was a slight problem with my game. For example, if I press play here, you'll see that every time I go to guess a number, let me guess 67, the guess started out by being 71. And so I could guess 71 and you guess my number. So I'm just going to stop the program. I'm going to play it again. And guess what? My first guess is going to be, I'm going to put 71 and hey, I guessed it. I thought I made a random number. I thought the last video I demonstrated the random function. And yes, I did display the random function, but there is one slight issue with the random number. The random number generator, for the purposes of debugging, will always start with the same random sequence. And that makes it easier for you to debug. But once you get the random numbers, we want to get it to be a different random number every time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the random statement out of the general declarations. And when the form loads, I'm going to use a statement called randomize, and then I'm going to get a random number. And I'll show you how to get the form load. Let's start by going to the top of my screen, and in the top of the screen I select form events, and in the event action I'm going to go down and look for an event called load, and it's going to generate the code for private sub form load. So when the form loads, I'm going to type in this word randomize, and randomize means start the random number generator and get a different random number. And then I'm going to say that my secret number is going to be equal to, and that random formula. So now when I play, it's going to be some random different number. And I used the label to display for debug purposes only. So when I actually make my game, I would get rid of it. But for debug purposes, and I do this all the time, I'll put a label and I'll say, yeah, display the variable in a label so I know what's going on in my program as it's running. So when I press play here, what's going to happen is you're going to see a random number form, the form loaded up, it randomized, so it used this randomize statement, and then it came up with a random number of 87. So 87 is a guess. So if I guess 67, it's going to be too small. And if I guess 99, it would be too large. And if I guessed 87, it would be perfect. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to make a new game. So I want to make it so I can play again and come up with a new game. And so for the new game button, what I want it to do is I want it to execute the form load. So how can I get it to execute something I've already done? I'm going to show you that in this video as well. So here's a new game. I think it's called button number 1. I didn't name it because it's just a small little project here. But I should probably go and rename it as button new game. And oops, it's because I already had it down there. I didn't like that. Sorry. I already had written the code for it, and so it didn't like me to make a new one. So I'm going to click on button 1, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to type btn new game. And now when I double click on button new game, it's going to say button new game click. Okay, so when I click on button new game, what I want it to do is a couple of things. I want it to clear the label. So me label 1 text is going to equal nothing. The text box where you guess, I'm going to clear the text box, is going to equal nothing. And then finally, I'm going to want to get a new random number. So I could type in secret number equals, and I could type in the code that's up here. But I can also reuse an action. I'm going to show you another way I could do it, is I can say, oh, let's go to form load. So I say form load. And then I need to send an object. So I'll send myself. And then I'm going to just type in new system event args. And this will now execute form load right here when I click the button. And so let's take a look at my revamped game. I'll press play here, and you'll see I can start off. It comes up with a completely random number of 46. I'm going to play the game as I normally would if I didn't know it. So my first guess would be 50. It's too large. So I would guess something smaller, which would be 25, too small. And then I would guess 37, which would be too small. And then I would guess halfway between 37 and 50, which is, boy, my math is not so good here. I think it'd be 45, too small. Then I'd do 48, too large. And then I'd do 46, and then it would have guessed it. So there you go. I guessed my number. I'm going to now play a new game. And so when I go new game, it came up with a new number of 42, and I could do the same fun guessing. And I guess another thing I should probably do is when I actually get it right, I should be counting how many guesses it took. That would be a good thing. So just to finish off this project, what I would do with this is I would go back, I would get rid of my debug label. I would also go to my form load, and I wouldn't display the secret number, but I know it all works. And I also would probably come up with some variable called number of guesses. And when I load the game up, I would probably say that my number of guesses is equal to 0 when I start a game. And I would do all that in the form load, because in here it's going to, anytime I have a new game, it's going to do the form load. And then finally, what I would also probably do is I would increment the number of guesses in here by 1 every time I click the button guess. And then in here, I would say, you guessed my number in, and I would use the ampersand, the number of guesses, and then the word guess. And I'll move this out of the way so you can see. So now it's going to not only tell me how many guesses when I get the secret number. So there's a couple of things to change in making the final guess the number game. So now you'll see when I guess the number, I'm going to come up with a new game. I'm going to guess 50. I have no idea what the number is. 50 is too large, so I'll try 25. 25 is too large. I'll try 12. 12 is too large. 5. And I guess I also would make the form a bit larger too. You guessed my number in 4 guesses.